Okay, so I don't know what's going to happen to the other live stream. But I did bring. So we could watch some more retro music videos. Like, feels weird saying retro. We could watch some more like old music videos, or I can read some more of a square meal. Should I read this? More of a square meal, or should there be more music videos? I could. Let me see. I want to see if I can actually make a poll. Can I do that? There's a plus button here. Look at that. It looks different on the phone. Oops. Let me see if I can get closer to it. Okay. I'm trying to make a poll. Sorry, I left option blank. This is weird. It's okay. It's just floating. Okay, then I'll resume this. Another bumper corn crop, keeping the prices low of not only corn but hogs. For the coming year, Iowa agricultural experts' best advice to farmers was to neither expand nor contract production, but just sit tight and hope for an economic upswing. During the 1930s, as in centuries past, the self-sustaining family farm remained the predominant unit of American agriculture in Iowa and elsewhere. However, farmers in some rural regions were increasingly devoting themselves to crop monocultures. From the potato fields of northern Maine to the Great Plains wheat fields and sprawling fruit and vegetable fields of California's Central Valley, farms were increasingly becoming agribusinesses, each with professional managers and dozens or even hundreds of employees, all reliant on regional or national marketplaces to sell their product. By far the oldest and largest of these monocultures was found in the Cotton Belt, a vast swath of land distinctive for its rich soil, hot and steamy summers, cool winters, running from southern Virginia to East Texas. The heart of this region was the Mississippi Delta, an alluvial plain that was covered with some of the darkest and richest farmland on earth and that bordered the seething muddy river between Arkansas and Louisiana on the west and Mississippi on the east. Here, cotton was the main and in many places the only crop. The region's entire economy rose and fell with its wholesale price. Cotton farms were organized on plantations that covered as many as 40,000 acres, more often owned by corporations controlled by investors in New Orleans and even London. Although mechanization was coming to the Delta, most of the work was still done by mule team and by human labor, calloused hands swinging the hoe under the summer sun and picking the bolls at harvest time. Called tenant farmers, the men and women who tended the fields and harvested the cotton labored in relationship clearly descended from that of master and slave in the pre-Civil War South, an annual contract replacing the master's deed of ownership. The majority of these farmers were black, although poor white laborers also worked the fields, and children agreed to tend 12 to 24 acres of cotton fields in return for share of the harvest, as well as the use of fertilizer, mules, and meager living quarters. Perched in the middle of the cotton fields, these homes were sloppily built 2 or 3 room shacks furnished with a few sticks of furniture owned by the landlord, and wallboards covered with smoke-stained newspapers that did little to keep out the winter cold or summer mosquitoes. In the kitchen, the only equipment was a wood-fired stove, a table, a couple of chairs, and a few shelves. Water came from a well out in the yard. The poorest tenants, called sharecroppers, also had to rely on the plantation owner for food, which was credited against their share of the crop. The result of this system was that many tenant farmers were caught in a permanent web of debts. In the event of disagreement, black farmers could not turn to the courts because they were controlled by the local white power structure and backed by Jim Crow laws enacted to keep blacks in their place. During World War I, when war industries, desperate for workers, offered blacks free tickets to cities like Pittsburgh and Detroit, white farmers enlisted local police to patrol railway stations and block them from embarking for the North. Whites also resorted to lynching and terrorism from groups like the Ku Klux Klan to keep blacks in line. Food consumed by the tenant farmers was another relic of slave-era traditions. The main difference was that in many cases slaves were better fed. For 7 or 8 months a year, the farm owner provided his workers with a plantation ration of white flour, cornmeal, salt, pork, and molasses, also known as the 3M, meat, meal, and molasses diet. At other times, they subsisted on hunting and fishing and on whatever they raised in their tiny gardens, if they were lucky enough to have one. By late winter, however, their cupboards contained only a small slab of salt pork, near empty sacks of cornmeal, rice, and black-eyed peas, and a bit of coffee. Meals, only 2 a day, consisted of monotonous round of rice, cornbread, and coffee for breakfast, and then peas and cornbread for dinner. If they were lucky, farmers could add a bit of protein to the diet if they had laying chickens or by catching fish and trapping rabbits. Most of the time, however, all they did was tighten their belts and belts and huddled around the barely warm stoves, listening to the wind whistling through the cracks in the wallboards as they waited for the planting and the start of the new season's contracts. Children grew hollow-eyed and listless and began to lose weight, while older folks suffered from indigestion, nervousness, and dizziness. Malnutrition, diseases such as rickets and pellagra, also known as the red flame, were common and potentially fatal. In March, however, they signed their contracts for the new season. The plantation owner handed out their ration of meat, meal, and molasses, and like all farmers, they began to work with hope for the success of the year's crop. And it was generally agreed along the delta that the spring of 1930 was uncommonly fine. The sun shone, the right amount of rain fell, the landscape was green with row after row of cotton plants. Sharecroppers' Children, Southeast Missouri. Russell Lee, photographer. Farm Security Administration. Library of Congress, LCDIG, FSA 8A22645. Just 3 years earlier, these same delta fields had been a scene of devastation, spurred by uncommon and flooded to well over 200 people. The disaster was so severe that local governments were powerless to help. President Coolidge called in Hoover, then Secretary of Commerce, who led a massive operation to rescue, house, and feed flood victims. However, Hoover refused to spend federal funds on the relief effort. He followed the conservative tradition of presidents such as Grover Cleveland, who in 1887 rejected drought aids to Texas farmers. The lesson should be constantly enforced that though these people support the government should not support the people. In combating the 1927 flood, Hoover obeyed that directive, at least at first. An Iowa farm boy who had risen to fortune and position, Hoover firmly believed that rugged individualism was a Central American virtue. To him, self-help and local volunteerism would be the backbone of the relief effort. However, he also had a pragmatic streak. He identified a role for the federal government in helping combat the flood. He enlisted the American Red Cross, a quasi-governmental organization chartered by Congress to plan and direct relief operations. During the worst of the crisis, Hoover also convinced the U.S. Army to distribute emergency rations, tents, and blankets directly to tens of thousands of refugees who were trapped on levees and in danger of starvation. The floodwater eventually receded, leaving a fetid, muddy plain interspersed with ruined homes. Hoover marshaled state governments to rebuild roads and bridges and extend credit to local banks so they could give low-interest loans to farmers. The Red Cross gave cotton and vegetable seeds and farm implements to farmers so they could feed themselves and begin rehabilitating their land. Although Coolidge and Hoover never acknowledged it, in the end the federal government dispersed at least as much in disaster relief funds as was raised through charity. The success of the 1927 flood relief effort earned Hoover the sobriquet the hero of the flood and carried him to the White House in 1928 elections. In the late spring and summer of 1930, a different, more insidious disaster unfolded over the Delta and surrounding regions of the South. In the last week of May, the rain stopped and temperatures soared all through June, July, and August. Cotton plants withered in their rows, garden vegetables turned dry and brown, and mules scrounged for grass to feed on. Ponds and streams dried up, and the mighty Mississippi receded to the lowest levels ever recorded. Southern Arkansas was a scene of arid desolation. Whirling dust boils up in the gravel roadbeds, enveloping the trees and hollyhocks. Everything is the same monochromatic tan: people, trees, flowers, and dogs. As July turned into August, word reached Washington that much of the nation east of the Rockies was suffering one of the worst droughts in history, threatening not only the livelihood of millions of farmers, but the nation's food supply. In the White House, President Hoover convened the governors of the 10 hardest hit states and the head of the Red Cross and outlined a drought relief program. Following his beliefs in self-help and voluntarism, each affected town, county, and state would form a relief committee, all of them guided by the National Drought Relief Committee. A Red Cross representative on each committee would help coordinate the work, direct relief supplies, and communicate any instructions from Washington. As in 1927, Hoover also encouraged regional banks to extend credit to farmers and negotiated with railroads to lower transportation rates for supplies into drought-stricken areas. These strategies had worked during the Great Flood. There was no reason they shouldn't succeed in 1930. Unfortunately for farmers in the 8 hardest hit states, the much vaunted drought relief plan did little to alleviate suffering. The present disaster is about combating drought and flood. Although its charter called for the Red Cross to provide aid for all natural disasters, the leaders defined the drought as an economic hazard, lumping it among strikes, business depressions, failure of crops, and all other forms of unemployment and economic maladjustment, which may cause widespread suffering. Besides, they had strong reasons for dragging their heels on drought aid. Hardship was so widespread that they were afraid that making an all-out effort to combat it would decimate their organization's finances. Under pressure from Hoover, the Red Cross earmarked $5 million for drought relief, but by the end of 1930 it spent only $460,000, mostly on seed distribution and far less on emergency food and clothing. Instead of leading the charge, it sought to shift the burden into local communities. Their economies, weakened by both drought and the larger business downturn, towns and cities in the drought area were in no shape to raise large amounts of money for relief. Between November 1930 and February 1931, more than 500 banks across the region failed. Local business leaders also downplayed the effects of the drought, afraid that accepting relief would slap the work ethic and tar the region as a charity case. In the Delta, plantation owners denied that their sharecroppers were hungry. I don't know why that happened. They had a long tradition of using food to control their poor workers, convinced that hungry workers would pick cotton more readily than those whose bellies were full of relief rations. Bosses planned to pay their sharecroppers only half what they had received in years past for the harvest. Hunger and privation continued across the drought area, and as the season turned colder, desperate farmers in the hard-hit states like Arkansas deluged the Red Cross with letters delineating their plight and pleading for aid. A woman in Magnolia, Arkansas, wrote that she and her children lacked both food and clothing and worried for their survival. I am near at my rose end. I am asking you for help or advice in some way. A local Red Cross worker in western Arkansas wrote that most of the banks had failed and 200 families needed immediate aid. If you will investigate, you will find honest Americans here in the Sevier County almost upon starvation. Another visited 44 sharecropper homes in the Delta and found only 4 men who were receiving wages. Their families lived on flour in the Delta, flour, lard, beans, salt pork. None had fresh vegetables or dairy products. 3 families owned chickens and one had a small pig. On Christmas Day, 1930, some sort of holiday cheer and been granted Red Cross rations. A widow and 7 children exemplified their plight. Their cupboard held a pint of flour and a few scraps of chicken bones, evidently the remains of their previous evening's meal. The only other food in the house consisted of 20 cans of fruit and vegetables the mother had put up during the summer. Their neighbors fared no better, living in cold cabins pasted with newspapers and eating remnants of lard and meal. One family of 10 lived on a few pounds of rice, flour, beans, and lard, but all the children were almost naked. Perhaps the most destitute he visited was a white family who had just eaten the last of their flour. Despite these conditions, Evans found no hysteria. Instead, people just sat around their fires uncomplaining. Relief workers saw that pellagra and other malnutrition diseases were spreading. With winter now upon them, many more farm families would become ill, and some, particularly the old and very young, would surely die. 9 days later, farmers' anger boiled over in the town of England, Arkansas, which was set in the middle of cotton fields on the Arkansas River's floodplain. A prime mover in the events of January 3rd, 1931, was a tenant farmer named Coney, who told his story to a writer for the New Republic. We all got pretty low on food here, and some was a starvin'. Maybe I was a little better fixed than most because we still had some food left. But when a woman comes over to me a crying and tells me her kids hain't ate nothing for 2 days and grabs me and says, Coney, what are we going to do? Then something went up in my head. I just says, Lady, you wait here, I'm a-going to get some food. Then I cranks up my truck and you see setting over yonder, takes my wife and rolls over to Bell's place. Bell's the feller them Red Cross guys picks up to run the relief, but he never gave out nothing. He always tell 'em he hain't got no blanks relief applications, and they gotta wait. Well, I rolls over to Bell's place and finds a crowd of hungry men, and Bell's still a saying that he hain't got no blanks. So I hollers out, all you that hain't yaller, climb on my truck. We're a-going to England to get some grub. They all load onto her. 47 clum on, and let me tell you, there weren't one among them that had a gun of any sort. In town, the hungry farmers went first to the police chief and the mayor to tell them that they had run out of food. Then they gathered in the front of the grocery store while officials frantically called Albert Evans in the state Red Cross headquarters. The owner of another grocery store told his workers that if the crowd busted in, let them take the food but save the cash register. Meanwhile, the small group of protesters had attracted a larger crowd, apparently almost all of them hungry farmers. Finally, an official arrived with blank forms, and by the end of the day, the Red Cross had handed out 2 weeks' supply of food to 500 families. Coney was pleased at the result. Yes, sir, my gang's stuck all right. I wouldn't have taken 'em if I hadn't thought so. It wouldn't have wanted but just a little bit. Sasterv had a showdown. But they doled out the feed, and we all rolled back here without nobody getting hurt. The following day, front page headlines blared on newspapers across the county. Arkansas farmers cry for food riot. According to the Associated Press, at least 500 farmers stormed England's business district demanding food or else. Many were obviously armed, with pistols bulging from it, and we want food and we want it now, Morris told a reporter. It was pathetic to hear those men and women crying for food, telling us their children actually were starving. The crowd was really not wild, considering everything, but they were in earnest, and it was not until I was able to tell them the arrangements had been made for food that they would listen. Then they quieted down, and soon the merchants were doing everything they could to free them. Still, Morris worried about what would happen when the farmers ran out of their supplies of relief food. The merchants of England either must move their goods or mount machine guns on their stores. News of what became known as the Arkansas food riot galvanized a debate already underway in Washington. After the completion of the harvest at the end of November, Cotton Belt leaders suddenly decided that many of their farmers were in dire need of help and might not survive the winter. In early December, Congressman James Benjamin Aswell of Louisiana proposed a bill giving up to $60 million in animal feed, seed, fertilizer, loans, and food to stricken farmers. For President Hoover, the bill was anathema, a raid on Treasury. that opened the door for the dreaded dole in the form of food relief. The submitted a Instead, he submitted a bill giving only $25 million in loans and specifically forbidding food relief. In House debate, Hoover supporter Congressman James Tilson called Aswell's bill revolutionary and predicted the high-principled industrious among the distressed will insist on treating it as a loan and will cripple themselves and their families in an attempt to repay it, and the idle and shiftless will accept it as a gift, dismiss any attempt to repayment, and live off the federal government as long as the opportunity exists. What's more, federal relief would bypass the Red Cross and thus atrophy one of the noblest emotions of the human heart, that of a generous response to a call for succor to distressed peoples. In the Senate, however, the Democrats were scathing in their attacks on Hoover, accusing him of playing politics with human misery. Senator Joseph Taylor Robinson of Arkansas ironically summed up the debate. It is all right to put a mule on the dole, but terrible to put a man on one. Meanwhile, the Red Cross continued to drag its heels. Its chairman, John Barton Payne, told Congress, in solving the many economic and social problems arising from the drought, it was considered essential that the Red Cross remain in the background. Insofar as possible, the welfare of the individual drought sufferer could best be promoted by having him solve his own problem, if he could, through normal banking and commercial channels. It was best that he secure another employment if possible and work out his own recovery, relying on the Red Cross only when his own efforts were unsuccessful. Meanwhile, the events in England prompted big northern newspapers to send special correspondents down to Arkansas. They found Little Rock filled with bums and hobos and politicians arguing about the dole. In some other towns, banks were closed and stores were empty of customers despite big sale signs in the windows. The only businesses that attracted a crowd were Red Cross offices, where farmers waited to sign up for relief. The need was growing, but it was clear that the Red Cross would require many millions more in order to adequately combat winter hunger. Pushed by Hoover on January 12th, John Barton Payne announced that the Red Cross would mount a $10 million fundraising drive to meet the greatly increased demands of the previous 10 days. 3 days later, the president signed a compromise bill pledging $45 million for feed, seed, and fertilizer loans, but no food relief. Senators and congressmen from the drought area continued to push for federal aid, pointing out that the Red Cross fund drive would raise only a fraction of the necessary money. Hoover and the conservative allies in the Congress held firm opposition, claiming that federal relief would destroy the Red Cross and be an unwarranted expansion of the federal government. Determined to squelch the opposition once and for all, on February 4th, President Hoover delivered a national radio speech laying out his reasons for blocking federal money being used for charitable purposes. I just got a weird... Okay. I'm going to read to the end of this chapter, and then we can watch something else. Some different music videos. Okay, where was it? Hoover's address focused on the needs of both rural drought sufferers and the urban unemployed in the ongoing economic crisis. He began in a conciliatory note. This is not an issue as to whether people shall go hungry or cold in the United States. It is solely a question of the best method by which hunger and cold shall be prevented. His opponents demanded to use federal dollars. Hoover wanted to preserve the spirit of charity and mutual self-help through the voluntary giving and the responsibility of local government. My own conviction is strongly that if we break down this sense of responsibility of individual generosity to individual and mutual self-help in this country in times of national difficulty, and if we start appropriations of this character, We have not only impaired something infinitely valuable in the life of the American people, but have struck at the roots of government. As for urban unemployment, Hoover proposed a combination of federal public works programs, along with charitable relief and help from local governments. If these policies did not work, he would then be open to changing course. I am willing to pledge myself that if time should ever come that the voluntary agency of the country, together with the local and state governments, are unable to find resources with which to prevent hunger and suffering, I will ask the aid of every resource of the federal government, because I would no more see starvation among our countrymen than would any senator or congressman. His opponents wanted him to begin these drastic measures immediately. However, Hoover was sure that he could avoid this disastrous course because he had faith in the American people that such a day will not come. Down in the drought region, news that the Red Cross would soon begin to distribute food and clothing led almost 500,000 families to sign up at a local relief office. More than a third of them were in hard hit rural Arkansas. Many had been living in near starvation diet of salt pork cornmeal, turnips, or Hoover apples, the main harvest of the Red Cross seed distribution program back in the fall. One sharecropper remembered the desperation of that time. We done without. I remember one time we got down to where we had nothing for bread, but we had some nubbins of corn out in our barn. We took a bucket lid and a nail, drove holes in it, and went out there and got some of those nubbins and rubbed it across there to make meal out of it so Mama could make cornbread. Relief workers doled out a carefully measured living diet, but not a diet that is enough to keep recipients from starving to death, but not enough to give them energy to work. If lucky enough to receive a full monthly ration, a family of 5 would receive 36 pounds of flour, 24 pounds of split beans, 12 pounds of cracked rice, 2 pounds of coffee, 24 pounds of oat cornmeal, a half gallon of molasses, lard and baking powder. Nutritionally speaking, this was only a slight improvement over the traditional 3M diet, thanks to the addition of those beans, which were the cheapest available on the market. Back in 1930, I remember the Red Cross giving us sacks of beans that had rocks in them. It was just like they had gone out there and piled up along a rocky place and loaded the rocks, which were the same color as those beans. You'd have to be real careful if Mama failed to catch the rocks when she was cooking them. That's still true of dry beans and dry peas. Um, you still have to be careful for rocks. To help families make up the dietary deficiency, Red Cross representatives also handed out copies of a pamphlet called "The Family's Food at Low Cost," published by the USDA's Bureau of Home Economics. It suggested that children get milk at every meal, that potatoes, tomatoes, and green or yellow vegetables be served at least once a day, and that eggs, legumes, and lean meat be served 2 or 4 times a week. In the context of Arkansas, the most bankrupt state of the Union, in the blighted winter of 1930 to 1931, there was little chance that a farm family of relief could follow those recommendations. That was not a matter of the Red Cross concern, according to the national headquarters, because Red Cross policy in disaster relief does not undertake to provide a more liberal standard of living than those existing in normal times. When journalists grimly noted the rise of pellagra and other malnutrition diseases, the Red Cross Senate's medical director, Dr. William, declined. I'm sorry. What? That's actually his name. I have to show you that. Can you read it? It's actually that's really what his name was. Decline. Like not decline like DECLINE, but DEKLEINE. Decline. Like decline. What a bad name. I mean, it's unfortunate. but his name is declined. That's terrible. Oh my gosh. His name is declined. I'm so sorry. I had a moment like that earlier today. I don't remember what it was about. I just, but I kept laughing like I couldn't stop laughing. I don't remember what. Oh, now I remember. I think about it makes me laugh again. I'm so sorry. My shirt. I don't know how to tell you. I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. Go on. I don't know if I can tell that story without like dying of laughter. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'll have to just skip that name. Well, the Red Cross sent its medical director to tour the area. My recent visit through the drought areas of Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Kentucky leads me to believe that the present shortage of food in these sections will not materially affect the general health of the people. In all the homes and schools I visited, I did not find any evidence of malnutrition. I need to stop looking at that. Okay, there we go. No! I'm sorry. It's only highlighted it. I didn't mean for it to do that. Okay. I'll just do that so I don't see it. Um it highlighted it. Okay. In all the homes and schools I visited, I did not find any evidence of malnutrition more than exists in normal times. I can therefore see no particular reason for alarm over health problems that may develop because of the present shortage of food unless it is recognized that these problems have existed for a long time. This does not mean that no attempt should be made to promote better food habits, but rather that under the circumstances, the most important thing to do is provide food for the hungry and actually prevent starvation. Hungry families want food and they want the kind they know and like the best. Folks who are accustomed to using flour, meal, salt, meat, molasses, lard, rice, beans, and coffee want these now, and the relief agencies must furnish these staples. The habits of a people cannot be changed overnight. The Red Cross also allowed local chapters widely leeway in setting rules about food relief. In Arkansas cotton country, local leaders remember the aftermath of the 1927 flood when many sharecroppers had allowed to loaf and eat. One planter said, "Lord, I hate to see put on any kind of free dole. It's their starvation, black sharecroppers, but not whites, to work on street repairs or in the fields before they could receive rations. This was in violation of red blacks who protested were beaten or simply denied food. In some areas, relief supplies were distributed by and therefore eager workforce. After complaints from local black leaders in the NAACP, the Red Cross investigated and confirmed the accounts. One country Red Cross chairman told the national office, if people get into their heads that when they have made a little cotton crop and tried to make a cotton crop and failed, and then expected charity to feed them for 5 months, then the Red Cross had defeated the very thing that it should have promoted, self-reliance and initiative. Rather than punish the local chapters, Red Cross leaders simply shook their heads and at the end of March wound down the distribution of food relief. Secretary of Agriculture Arthur Hyde toured the region and returned to report that he saw no signs of human suffering. Everywhere people were putting in gardens and preparing the ground for crops. The drought had been broken by rains, and if it would only stay broken by receiving the normal precipitation from now on, all would be well. Indeed, the only complaint of any kind he had encountered was from an old man by the roadside who said the Red Cross had fed them too well. Thanks to the richness of their land, the citizens of Arkansas and other Delta regions managed partial recovery from the linked effects of drought and economic slowdown. At least they were able to grow enough food to feed their families after a fashion. Other parts of the South were less lucky. Although Arkansas was hardest hit by the drought, a belt of devastation also stretched north and east into Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Virginia. Most of this region was southern Appalachia, home to the thousands of small subsistence farms many miles from the nearest road, in the mountains of the southeastern Kentucky. There were only a few towns, usually the country seats of a few hundred people each. All the rest of the mountaineers lived in lonely cabins and shacks scattered along the rivers and up the creeks and branches that made deep cut into the hills. Those narrow canyons were their homes. The steep slopes and ridges above them, covered with fine forests of poplar, black walnut, oak, and beech, made free feeding grounds for their hogs. Once on small strips of rocky soil on the slopes and down in the creek bottoms, they raised corn for their huge families and for the winter, feeding of their cows and sheep if they had them, duck, geese, and chickens, mules, and hogs. And in autumn came the foddering, whole families working early and late to get in the corn before the rains, and most of the people in the hills corn pone and potatoes and pork was their food 3 times a day, year in and year out. This precarious mode of life persisted across the mountains from Kentucky all the way to Virginia's Blue Ridge Mountains, where people lived much as the first settlers had 150 years earlier. They survived by hunting, fishing, logging, and planting a few fields. In winter, they ate cornmeal, cabbage, dried apples, and salt pork, with an occasional squirrel or rabbit. In summer, their diet was supplemented with the president. When the 1930s in springs, farm animals had to be slaughtered because there was no forage for them. Men picked up their rifles and went into the woods, decimating the local population of deer, squirrel, rabbit, and birds. After the corn crop failed, people had no surplus to last them through the winter. By January, the situation was so bad that a desperate Kentucky Red Cross worker wrote, "We have done our best for everybody. We have filled up the poor farm. We have carted our children to orphanages for the sake of feeding them. There is no more room. Our people in this country are starving and freezing." The National Red Cross granted the hungry people a bare bones $1.50 to $2.50 a month food ration. Down in the county seats, many local chapter leaders thought even that was too much for the hill folk, whom they saw as more or less subhuman, mostly criminals and moonshiners. After a tour of Kentucky, Dr. William declined. Sorry, I didn't think that name would go back again. I'm so sorry. I'll have to look away from the book. Okay. Of the Red Cross wrote, "There is a feeling among the better farmers in Boyd County that the drought is providential. that God intended the dumb ones should be wiped out, and that is a mistake to feed them. See, I don't actually feel bad for laughing at that person's name because he was obviously awful. God, it seems, had a different idea. In April 1931, the rains resumed, and hill folk once again began hoeing their fields and planting their gardens, often with Red Cross seed. Subsistence farmers made up only a portion of Appalachia's population. Large tracts of eastern Kentucky and West Virginia sat on a vast deposit of relatively clean burning bituminous coal. Bituminous coal? Bituminous coal. Coal fields were discovered there in 1750, but isolation and lack of a railroad precluded commercial mining. Another monoculture, but this time of fossilized plant matter. Until the late 19th century, coal prices soared during World War I, driving up wages and luring men from their hill farms to jobs in the mines. However, the boom ended when European coal fields resumed. When European coal fields resumed production, and by 1927, wages and hours began to slide downward. To make up for the loss of profits, mine operators were as creative as cotton plantation owners in finding new ways to squeeze every last dollar out of their workers. Miners and their families lived in company-owned houses as drafty and poorly built as sharecroppers' backs down in the Delta. They got their water from local springs and streams, often typhoid-ridden and gritty with coal dust. The miners were paid not in cash but in company scrip, from which owners deducted the workers' rent, coal for heating his house, blasting powder for use in the mines, and the expenses that included substandard medical care and contributions to a burial fund. With what was left, the miner's wife could go to the company store to buy food at prices that were easily double the fresh milk was nearly unobtainable to scratch out a few vegetables during the summertime, if there was rain. Children rarely attended school and were often sickly. Many older miners suffered from black lung disease, and almost all owed debts to the company stores that could never repay. Life in Appalachia's coal fields had long been marked by labor unrest, which frequently turned to outright violence. One of the few relief valves for this tension was the mine's proximity to the hills. When conditions got too bad, many miners would just return to their mountain farms. However, in the drought-whacked winter of 1930 to 1931, the farms were not producing. Then in February 1931, mine operators in Harlan County, Kentucky, squeezed by the economic depression, announced a 10% wage cut for all workers. The United Mine Workers Union quickly called a mass meeting to exhort miners to unionize in order to block wage cuts and improve working conditions. The next day, mine operators began firing any workers who attended and evicting them and their families from company housing. These actions sparked a decade-long conflict marked by violence, strikes, legal battles, and widespread deprivation that spread across the coal fields of Appalachia. Harlan County, which had already bristled with guns, was particularly bloody, with dozens of men dying on both sides of the battle. Caught in between were the striking miners' wives and children, who huddled in makeshift camps while the men fought for better wages. For food, they had little more than beans, salt pork, and cornbread. With no milk, many infants and small children died of malnutrition. Many had been helped into the world by Molly Jackson, a nurse and union worker's wife, who in the fall of 1931 wrote a song called Kentucky Miner's Wife, Ragged, Hungry Blues. I'm sad and weary, I've got the hungry, ragged blues. I'm sad and weary, I've got the hungry, ragged blues. Not a penny in my pocket to buy the thing I need to use. I woke up this morning with the worst blues I ever had in my life. I woke up this morning with the worst blues I ever had in my life. Not a bite to cook for breakfast, a poor coal miner's wife. This mining town I live in is a sad and lonely place. This mining town I live in is a sad and lonely place, where pity and starvation are pictured on every face. Ragged and hungry, no slippers on our feet. Ragged and hungry, no slippers on our feet. We're bumming around from place to place to get a little bite to eat. All going round from place to place, bumming for a little food to eat. Listen, my friends and comrades, please take a friend's advice. Don't put out no more of your labor till you get a living price. Some coal operators might tell you the hungry blues are not bad. Some coal operators might tell you the hungry blues are not bad. They are the worst blues this poor woman ever had. In most places in Appalachia, there existed no state-run relief organizations and only a bare-bones local relief apparatus, usually with enough funds to run the county poorhouse and support a few of the aged, blind, and chronically sick. Hungry workers turned first to the UMW, but the union quickly backed off its commitment to the Harlan strike. The Harlan County Red Cross chapter had recently been given $3,000 by the national office. However, the coal companies controlled its leadership, which reiterated organization policy about providing food relief in natural disasters but not industrial downturns. Exceptions were made only for those few miners who had managed to find a plot of land for growing vegetables. Red Cross rules said they could be aided as farmers. As for striking miners in Harlan County, they were bluntly told, "You want relief? Go back to work." In other parts in West Virginia, their plight became so dire that a Brant Scott, a state mine union leader, traveled to Washington to plead for aid, telling senators that a third of the state's 112,000 miners were unemployed and another third worked only 1 or 2 days a week. In mine settlements, many children ran around half naked and shoeless and suffered from rickets. In the Kanawha region, home to about 25,000 miners, Scott estimated that 8,000 workers were hungry and destitute. He added, "Their diet is potatoes, bread, beans, oleomargarine, but no meat. Except they received nothing from the state rent 3 times. They know the conditions, but still they won't be giving them." The senators immediately set up a meeting for Scott at Red Cross headquarters to state his case. President Hoover also wrote to John Barton Payne asking him to help the miners. There is no doubt some real suffering, and it is likely to be formulated as a charge that the Red Cross is not taking care of the whole of the people in that area. Once again, Payne refused, fearing that this would open the door to Red Cross responsibility for much wider unemployment relief. However, he did not want to sound totally heartless. "You have offered seed for planting wherever the miners can find land on which to plant." John Barton Payne had repeatedly blocked the administration's aid requests, causing severe political damage to the president. Somehow, Hoover's affection for the organization never wavered. He was guest of honor at the Red Cross's 50th anniversary dinner, where he praised Payne for his steadfastness in holding the organization to its national ideal as non-governmental agency for the free expression of the private generosity and humanity of the people. Meanwhile, the situation in the Appalachian coalfields continued to deteriorate as the strikes of hunger spread. Pushed by dire news reports, Hoover aides contracted the American Friends Service Committee, a Quaker relief organization, to see if it could help the miners. The Friends recognized that the condition of the bituminous coalfields represents a collapse of civilization at a critical point. They agreed to feed hungry children in the coal areas, but only if they could also help train laid-off miners and their wives in other types of work. Hoover promised them $200,000 to be provided by the Red Cross. The Friends waited for 2 months, and finally Payne responded. For the Red Cross to provide funds in the face of need in several states would, I fear, involve serious criticism, more than if nothing were done. Somehow Hoover found $225,000 in an idle account belonging to a World War I European relief organization and immediately sent it to the Friends. They set up stations in Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Maryland, and Tennessee to give milk and one substantial meal of up to 40,000 children a day. Pregnant and nursing mothers were also fed. Quaker volunteers taught miners' wives how to sew and their idle husbands how to craft furniture. This program allowed Hoover to give relief without using federal funds. The Red Cross protect its narrowly defined mission, and mine owners and local politicians to preserve their power. Nevertheless, Quaker relief fed only a small segment, the most vulnerable one, of the hundreds of thousands of hungry and malnourished people across Appalachia. Okay, I'm going to turn off the nook for now. Let me go blow my nose. I guess maybe I can tell that story about my shirt though. So my shirt. Um, I had my shirt like this. Just, I don't know if you saw it, but just kind of like that. And um, after like I left earlier today for a while to go some different places and do some different things. I came back and instead like they they remade the bed, but then it was like it's like they I don't know if they like remade the bed with the shirt just like still on there, but it looked like they decided to like it looked like they arranged the shirt like look at that. I'm still laughing just looking at it. Anyway, yeah, they arranged it with the arms on. Like, I have to put it back. It was like that. I think what's so funny about his thought is like when you just like when you don't mean to like forget something like there like that and you mean to like pack it back up again, um you don't really think about like what what position the shirt's in, like whether it's like laid flat there like that. But usually if a shirt is like somewhere like like if you were to prepare usually I think of like if somebody wants to like leave something um leave something out like it's supposed to be worn later, like if that were true, if that were the case, like this is supposed to be put on later on. It would be laid out flat, but the arms would be just like, just neutrally, like the way that it would look when you're wearing it. It wouldn't be like, it's like literally like, pick me up. You wouldn't usually expect it to be like laying out flat, but like this. I'm still laughing over it. I didn't know you could see the thing. I thought that was like it's actually blocking. I didn't know you could actually like see it on there. Okay, let me go ahead and exit it. Like, how do you do that? Isn't there some option for... Wait. Is there not an option for that? I'll just put that in the corner. I didn't know. I thought you couldn't see it. I thought that it was like over. I thought it looked different than the way it's actually appearing. So, like, usually when I do a stream on the computer, like the poll thing looks like it's in another part of the chat or something. I don't usually see it like that. It's like, that's different. Like, being able to move it around the screen like this is so strange to me. Anyway, it's actually there's a lot of I think there's like a really gorgeous like hiking path along the Appalachian states. Yeah, they did, but they made it funny without meaning to. I just okay, what do I do about this poll? Okay. What do I do about it? It seems like it won't go. Oh my goodness! Look at that! I made the poll going. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that it was like that though for so long. Like I thought that with it floating there, I thought only I could see it like there on my face. It was like right over my face, and I like it was like that's fine. I didn't know you could see like. Okay. Yeah, it's gone now. All right, so for music videos, um, oh, I've got to put my glasses back on. I forgot to put my glasses back. Okay, so. Um, all right. Oh, I know. I know. Okay, so I think what I could do. This might be fun. Um, I can look up music videos by artists and use this as a guide, kind of. Okay, artists. Should I go by alphabetical order? Hmm. Well, are you sure? We could watch. We could watch some various like boy band. Hmm. That's weird. Okay, well this iPod doesn't even include that. Even though I have that, it's okay. Um. Okay. I'm thinking. I think it could be fun to look for music videos that played in Europe that I remember. Okay, how about that? This kind of counts as a, well, no, I feel like it's weird because it's like I can't really say that it's not a, they're not a, sorry. Oh, oh my goodness. Okay, let me try that again. It didn't let me finish searching. Okay, and then I go to space, and then anyway, here we go. You can't really say that they're not a boy band or not a girl band since they're both. Sorry for this. Okay. So this is ATC I'm in Heaven. This was big around 2001. It is a good video. It's just yeah, ATC did La 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 as well. Oh, absolutely. I love 18s. Yeah, I love 90s aesthetic stuff. The bright colors and everything. It's probably still a shirt. Probably still thinking about that. Okay. So they had so many just amazing music videos. Um, so they had the music video for Mamma Mia. They also did one for Gimme Gimme. Um, they did all kinds of music videos. Dancing Queen. The cool thing is in this music video, they do this thing where they revisit themselves in the music videos. So it's worth it to just, yeah, we can just watch all their music videos if you want. If you don't mind that. I'd say this one I think is first, and then gimme, 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 maybe. Yeah. And then we can watch Super Trooper. And then Nintendo. I don't know if that's the correct order exactly. So when it starts, actually no, not when it starts. Maybe since I don't know it. So I made up my mind and that's not good. Give me now, I don't know how, but I silently lose control. There's a fire within my soul. I swear I can look in your eyes. I know I can look in your eyes. Oh, oh, yeah, here I go again. My, how can I resist you? Oh, yeah, there's a show again. My, how much I missed you. Yes, I've been broken hearted. Well, since the day we parted. Why did I ever let you go? Mamma mia, I don't really know. I'm giving you 10,000 to all the times I told you to. And you can hear it going. Here I go again. My, how can I resist you? It's cool. They actually did pose the same way ABBA did. Why did I ever let you go? Oh, Mia, I don't really know. Mama, I could never let you go. My favorite part's coming up. Mama, how can I resist you? Mama Mia, this is broken. Mama, that's how much I missed you. Yes, I've been broken hearted. Since the day we parted. Why did I ever let you go? Mamma mia, I don't really know. Why I could never let you go. Oh, I forgot. I was going to pause that. It's okay. It'll probably play another one and I can pause it. Right? Oh, no, it's not. It's actually playing this. That's okay. I love this. This is Magic Box from Italy. I'm actually not even surprised it would choose the things. It required me to sign in. So that explains why it would be playing this. He had some other cool songs. Not that many songs, though. But the songs I heard by him I liked. And his sister is an artist too. In Italy. No, not that. Sorry. Um, so I guess, oh no, that's weird. I don't know why I did that. Let's go back. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't like Daniel Bedingfield. I never liked that song. What is it doing? Wait, no. Wait. How can I do this? How can I do this? Gosh. Okay, I think. There we go. Wait, I just got a. It made a sound. What is that? Okay, there we go. One moment. Okay. Do they have a playlist? Like music videos, create a playlist. There we go. 10 videos. Oh. Okay, so does it have all of them though? Okay, it does. It has a perfect match in there. Okay. Let's just watch them all. I do have to quickly do something very quickly. So just one moment. Feeling inside out, stranger to speeding, got no clue what I should do. I go crazy if I can't get next to you. The teacher says to concentrate. The walk his name must be a quake. And please, I wish that I could walk right up to you. Each time I try, the same old hesitation. Upside down, bouncing off the ceiling inside out. Stranger to speeding, got no clue what I should do. I go crazy if I can't get next to you. Someday, you will want me to. One day will be the day that all my dreams come true. Upside down, bouncing off the ceiling inside out. Danger to speeding, got no clue what I should do. I go crazy if I can't get next to you. Upside down, bouncing off the ceiling inside out. Stranger to speeding, got no clue what I should do. I go crazy if I can't get next to you. Go crazy if I can't get next to you. Go crazy if I can't get next to you. That was red coffee. Oh, I'll definitely play. Oops. Oh, we just watched this one. I'm sorry. That's how we want it. That is how we need it. Sometimes I want the people in the corner want to see it. Can you feel it? That's how we want it. That is how we need it. Sometimes I want the people in the corner want to see it. Can you feel it? And everything I send a letter to let you know my love is everything. Cause you will always feel safe. So remember in your heart, baby, when we are apart, there is no need for crying. See the fire halfway around the world. It won't stop me from loving you. Halfway around the world, still be feeling the way I do now. I wanna hold you me for crying, even if I am halfway around the world. Still won't stop me from loving you. Halfway around the world, still be feeling the way I do now. I wanna hold you, baby, 'cause I wanna miss you like crazy, even if I'm halfway around the world. If I could, you know that I would find a way to stay for good, but I must go now. I wanna hold you, baby, 'cause I'm gonna miss you like crazy, even if I'm halfway around the world. That won't stop me from loving you. Halfway around the world, still be feeling the way I do now. I wanna hold you, baby, 'cause I wanna miss you like crazy, even if I'm halfway around the world. Still be feeling the way I do, halfway around the world. Still be feeling the way I do now. I wanna hold you, baby. I'm gonna miss you like crazy, even if I'm halfway around the world. This is one of their coolest music videos, though. I swear I want you to know I'm alone. I want to hear my prayer. Give me a man at the midnight. Oh, darkness is silence away. Give me a man at the midnight. Take me through darkness to the break of the day. So out there, wanna hear my prayer. Give me a man at the midnight. Takes the shadows away. Give me a man at the midnight. We through the darkness to the break of the day. Give me a man at the midnight. Give me a man at the midnight. They always have the most intense dances. So out there, I want to hear my prayer. darkness, you would break on the day. Give me a man up in midnight. Give me a man up in midnight. It's harder to sing laying down. I don't know why that is. Oh, we watched. No, wait, no. We didn't. I love this video. I promise myself. I promise I'll wait for you. Midnight hour. Know you'll shine on through. I promise myself. I promise I'm good to you. I gave you flowers to make my dream come true. How many of us out there feeling me to run and look for shelter? Kiss yourself, can I take that for you? Granted tomorrow, all you wish for I'm not with you. How many of us out there feeling free, losing what was once there? But I know people say I'm prouder. Who can live without myself? In my hour, I will wait for you. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you. In my hour, I will wait for you. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you. Sugar rush. I got something for your sipping from my head to my toes. I get my feet back on the ground, 'cause you make me go out of my way. Facing the light, making me say what I have in mind. Make me so excited, and I don't wanna fight it. I start to rush, you are my sugar rush. Nothing better, baby. Is it for real, baby? I start to rush, You are my sugar rush. I can see to get taste for you, and it might be too obvious, but I just in the night, making me say, why am I? You make me so excited, and I don't wanna fight it. I start to rush. You are my sugar rush, and nothing better, baby. Is it for real, oh baby? I start to rush. You are my sugar rush. You're my sugar rush. I can wake and talk too much. You're the sweetest thing I ever tasted. Baby, you're a sugar rush. I can wake and talk too much. Make me go out of my way. 'Cause you don't know what I have in mind. You make me so excited, and I don't wanna fight it. I start to rush. You are my sugar, nothing better, baby. Is it for real, baby? I start to rush. You are my sugar, you're my sugar rush. I can't wait and talk too much. You're the sweetest thing I ever tasted. Baby, you're my sugar rush. I can't wait and talk too much. You are my sugar. I think the next one's actually the last one. Perfect match. Sorry, not perfect match. Actually, no, that is what it's called. Perfect match. And it was really the only 18 song that had this like more adult sort of theme. Spending money on diamonds and pearls. It's on my car to travel the world. Oh, baby, you got such. Baby, you know it's a perfect match. Fashion dinners and bar. Do yourself for a series by one. Baby, I'm no trash. Baby, so it's a perfect match. Night and day, white and black. The world we had is a perfect match. When I say this, you say that. And love comes easy cause opposites attract. Crispy and cream. Apples all over my jeans. Baby, I love snatch. It's a perfect match. Like night and day, white and black. The what we had is a perfect match. When I say this, you say that. The what we had is opposites attract. I know we'll keep it all together. Keep our love intact. And prove that opposites attract. Oh, 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 oh. No money on diamonds and pearls. I'm going to travel the world. That is a perfect match. Night and day, white and black. The what we had is a perfect match. When I say this, you say that. What we had is a perfect match. Night and day, white and black. What we had is a perfect match. When I say this, you say that. What we had is a perfect match. Night and day, white and black. What we had is a perfect match. When I say this, you say that. Love comes easy cause opposites attract. Attract. You probably don't want it to go right into Girls Aloud Mega Mix, do you? Right? Oh, thank you. Amanda Ghost Idol. Okay, I'll look up Amanda Ghost Idol. We can listen to Girls Aloud later. I'm sure we will. Okay, Amanda Ghost Idol. There's so is it going to play after? Anyway, those are all the videos by 18s. Apparently, Kara hadn't seen them before. Okay. Oh, okay. That's the video. Right? Here? Okay. Is this the correct video? was cool. It actually, it reminded me of this one German music video I remember. Oh, I'm sorry you can't hear it that well. Reminds me a little bit. I'll show you. It's a fun. Um, trying to think of what it was called. It might be the atmosphere of the video. But this music video is what that one reminds me of. And I don't remember what her name was. Oh, there it is. It's right there, but I don't know. No. No. It might be that actually. Let's see. I would be surprised if it is this artist, because if it is, then that would mean it would have had to have been in Italy then, not Germany. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay. It is this. Let me pause it then. Okay, so her name is Vanessa Amorosi. And the song is called Every Time I Close My Eyes. This is what that video, I don't know if it's necessarily her voice, but something about the video reminded me of this one. So I thought I'd share it. Hmm. Wait, no, she's Australian then. Okay. She does sing good. I didn't know she was Australian. We're in a room. Gosh, yes. Not that one though. Well, I'm using my phone. Here. For now. Moreau. Moreau. O Town. I'll ignore it. Marrow. Mare. Okay. Alright. I'll find this one. A micro. I don't know how a microphone would work, like with the, because this is just a phone. You get what I mean? Rinse impossible odors out in one wash. That was interesting. I liked the music. The music felt very it reminded me a lot of like Depeche Mode. But also kind of like some sort of Joy Division sort of thing.
Do you know
that was cool.
has hundreds of incredible products on sale?
Okay. Oh. You like an edit of the video? Okay. Oh, I just saw that. Okay. Did you want me to go with that one? I didn't realize that. Okay. I thought you'd want me to go with. Okay. Uh, um. Hmm. So we listened to all of the 18 stuff. Or not listened to, we watched all the 18's videos. Um, hmm. I'm still thinking. Um, okay. Book. So, Savage Garden or Boyzone? Feels weird to ask that. Savage Garden or Boyzone? What I mean to say is whichever one first. Savage Garden. Okay, yay. I do feel like Savage Garden. I'm not just saying this because I love Darren Hayes stuff. Like, I do feel like there are Savage Garden videos that are just so 90s. That are just so very. They just capture 90s just beautifully. That's sepia. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so let's watch some. Yes. I love this video so much.
and some have pain relief that lasts all day. So I can handle whatever the day may throw at me. Don't take if allergic or with strong CYP3A4 inhibitors. Tell your doctor all medicines you take. Report increased blood pressure or color changes, pain, or numbness in fingers or toes. Get help right away for allergic reactions like trouble breathing, face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, which may occur days after use. Ask your doctor how you can stop migraine attacks and stay in rhythm with you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Easily cut.
Let's go back to Savage Garden. Sorry. I'm trying not to laugh. It's just, I can't. I can't. Oh, no. That's the album. That's best of. Okay, let's. Oh my gosh, I can't. Okay. Okay, so that's 3 videos here. And oh my gosh, that one's so good. Okay, sorry. Aren't there 2 versions of To the Moon and Back? Like the music video, I mean, like there's one where he's got longer hair. I swear.
I'm just super frustrated. But for God's sake, don't look at love. So.
I'm sorry, I hadn't seen that ad before. I didn't know where it was going.
Ulcerative colitis with Entyvio. The only gut focus.
Oh my gosh. Wait. I think that's it down there. How can it go to that? Can it go to that? I don't think it does.
Still looking. Tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to do now. Oh, yeah, that. It's doing that. Anytime I need to skip and switch, close my eyes and I click into a quiz request on my mind of a gentle Phoenix, reach over and flip the pipe that reach the Jericho. I'm nothing through pain that is a little bit closer. Breathe in again. Ooh, I want you, I know if I need you, but ooh, I die if I don't. Ooh, I want you.
I'm the world's greatest advertisement. We're the hottest new pseudo-driven that makes you effortlessly beautiful. When a cold has you down, it's the little comforts that lift you up. Infused with aloe, Kleenex Cooling Plus Aloe provides a hint of cooling freshness to help your skin feel restored, even when your nose is feeling its worst. For whatever happens next, grab Kleenex.
Sorry, we already watched. Wait. What on earth? Okay, we watched that. It's like acting. Like that's not even really real. Man. Oh, I don't really like this song. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't really like this one. I feel bad about that too. But I don't like this one.
Perfectly from movie, even swoop can. Cause tonight I'm finding it hard to be honest. So I wasn't always here, but thanks to Purdue Global, I got my literal dream job. 3 years ago, I didn't have a degree. I like my job. I just had to sit. I needed the credentials. I never thought college. Excuse me. Little help here? Still stressing out the Bills game next week, huh? Here, try this. Better?
I don't know who's here anymore because it doesn't say, and I don't know why the chat it's not showing, which is disturbing. I don't know why it's not showing. Hmm. Maybe every few hours that's an issue. I don't know. Um, I might just, I don't know. I might, I might end the stream for now. If that's alright. And maybe stream more tomorrow. Goodbye for now. Thank you for watching.